Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Ms. Cordova should be.
Here.
Okay, wonderful. By Zoom. Ms. Parker is absent at this moment. Mr. Rackler,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Here.
Mr. Merrick,
Here.
Mr. Self,
Here.
Mr. Elkins,
Here.
and Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Okay,
We have a quorum.
we have.
I'd ask everyone to stand, and Councilman Robinson's going to lead us in the invocation, and Councilman Merrick is going to lead us in the pledges.
Father in heaven, we come to you again tonight, asking for your continuing blessing on this great community. We ask you to be with the family of Donald Trump, president candidate, so they have a speedy recovery. We ask you to watch over him as he continues his process and protect our political process. Father in heaven, we come with you in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag, the state of New Mexico, the Fiat Temple, permanent friendships among united cultures.
Thank you. No worries. No. All right. We are now at our public comment period. The public has the opportunity to provide comment on subjects regarding city business during the public comment period. Speakers' comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the mayor and or councilors request more information. The time limit is given in an effort to allow public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt yet efficient manner. All speakers must sign in at the beginning of the meeting, and topics are limited to 6 speakers per page. My first speaker this morning is Mr. Walls, Community Concerns. Mr. Walls, if you'll step to the podium, please. And please go ahead and give us your name for the record.
Robert Walls.
Okay, if you'll.
My name is Robert Walls Jr. I just had a couple questions, I know our water problem's like the main problem going on in our community, but I also have some concerns with the little crime we do have here and the drug problem we do have in our community and our roads as well. I was just wondering what you could do to fix that and what your take would be on it as well.
We do not respond during public comment, but I'll make some comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's all.
I had.
Anything else?
No, that's all
Okay.
I had to say.
Well, thank you for being here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Okay, our next is, can't read the first name, Hall, police reform. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Cynthia Hall.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you.
I don't know if this, I addressed some of these concerns privately with the governor of New Mexico. But anyhow, I didn't really want to say it because there was a lot of police presence, but that's not the issue here. The issue is some of the police here in Portales. Okay. There are some very good ones, daytime, very good. But when I have any issues at night, I've had even officers that were, kind of telling me, yelling at me, trying to give drugs to my underage son, marijuana at the time before it was legalized. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I know I don't have a lot of time here. And I'm not trying to put down because I'm very respectful of the police officers that do work and put everything on the line. But there is a call to reform that this does need, and I wanted to do it on a local level because it's not just my opinion. There's a lot of older people in my community that have the same issues to where we look transparent when we don't want people knowing our business because there's people that mean people in this town. So my thing is, I think it really needs to be dove into and really focused in on, what are we putting out? Who are helping who? We're a society where there's peace officers. And in some instances, I've had more help with the state police, honestly, that were more respectable in some instances. Now, I'm not saying bagging everybody with the Portales Police Department because there are good officers and I realize they're understaffed, maybe a little underpaid. But my thing is when you have some bad apples in there they're really, they should be looked into with their body cams and what they're stating. They've put me in harm's way a few times. I'm a single older lady that lives on my own. I'm very personable and, but I will speak up. And I was just, wanting to handle this on the local level, which I have tried through many departments, through the police department. And, I don't know. I've heard a lot of backlash with some police officers because they feel like they don't have a lot of people but then you got some in there that are just absolutely need a little bit more looking into and getting reviewed psychologically before you put them out there. I mean, I just had an instance and I'm just going to say this. I just wanted some music turned down because it reflects in my home. Long story there, but it does. And I like all my neighbors, don't get me wrong, but the gentleman came up and was making statements, like I was referring to the type of music. No, he was saying it was Hispanic. I didn't like it because it was Hispanic. Not at all. I have multiracial in my family. I too am. But the thing is that I have to keep always constantly, and this has been through 15 years. I've seen so much stuff. If I could sit down with one good officer, because I've been dealing with Charlie Smart. So I'm hoping that I can clue them in on what's going on. And I think that's not just my opinion. These are other opinions, but some people just don't want to stand up or they're too old or, Portales people aren't really in your face sometimes, most of them, but I am. And that's what I'm here for, is to see if we can look at reform. Because with that, there's the good ones that want to go out there and do a good duty. And then there's ones that have no business being in there, right?
All right.
And that's all I have to
Thank you,
say,
Ms. Hall.
Mayor.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, Ms. Murray.
My name is Mary Murray. I've lived in Portales for 35 years, lived here before. First of all, I want to thank Chief Kathy for calling me today because I was going online to put in a public comment and I've never done this before. And he called me right away and explained how it worked and got me here tonight so that I can say what I wanted to say. I went to the town hall meeting last week. It was very enlightening. I had no idea we had such surplus money in the state of New Mexico. Sometimes you don't know whether it's a political statement or whether it's the facts. Sometimes you don't know, but if there's money there in Santa Fe that is in surplus, just waiting, we need to get some of it. And my question is, do we have anybody on the staff in the city of Portales that can write those grants to apply for those monies for our infrastructure, roads, water, and one of my personal favorites, the swimming pool. It's a sad, sad day that we don't have access to a swimming pool this year. So I'm just asking if there's nobody there to apply for these grants, let's find somebody, because we have good people in this town and we have lots of educated people who can do the writing and know how to jump through the hoops that government always requires. And so let's do that and get us a piece of the pie, so to speak, and get some things done around here. Thank you very much.
And I'll address some of those in my comments at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we have on our public comment list today. So we'll move into our agenda now. Our first item today is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held June 25th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Self, second by Mr. Elkins. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll look, time out. Got to do this quickly. Since we have somebody on Zoom, I need you to call the roll, please.
Sure thing. Okay, Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Ms. Parker is absent, Mr. Rattler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Next is our presentation. Our first presentation is monthly department heads update, human resources. Ms. Richards.
Thank you. Perfect. Good evening. So I'll be giving the presentation on HR. Like you said, I'm Jenezra Richards, go by Jenna, and I'm the HR director for the city of Portales. Go ahead to the next one, Chris. Just a couple updates from the HR department. We've been busy with our summer seasonal staff. We were able to get 4 new staff members to help out within the parks and then also inside with some of the administrative roles. HR has been busy on assisting on the new city manager search and helping the committee be able to have everything in place to be able to move forward with that. We're continuing with new applicants, conditional offers, drug testing and enrollment. So that keeps us day-to-day operations busy. The day-to-day operations of just paperwork, pay action notices for all the city departments. We have our summer employee appreciation lunch hosted by the Employee Association coming up on the 26th. So those are some things that HR has been actively working towards and on. Go ahead, for the next one, Chris. So this graph shows the departments and the tallies of the total staff and the needed staff per department. And going from left to right, we're doing good in our clerk's department. Transit is in need of applicants and applicants that we can move forward with. So as soon as applicants come in, we go through our regular process of reviews to be able to get those applicants to the department to hopefully find applicants suitable for the positions. Our courts clerks are good. Our finance team is good at this time. Public infrastructure has 28 and then they're needing 4 between solid waste and streets are their needs. Public utilities has 23 on staff and they're needing 1 more water labor. Police has their 22 and they're needing 4. Fire has their 27 and are needing 8. Our community service, animal control, code enforcement, they were at 5, needing 1. Some of these numbers have fluctuated just a habit within this last week. Library is fully staffed, HR is fully staffed, IT is fully staffed, and our communications department is fully staffed. So that's kind of where our departments and our needs are right now within the departments. Go ahead, Christine. Some of the ways that we do advertise our open positions kind of gives you an idea of where they're at, especially if anyone in our community council department heads get questions on where they can apply. City website, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're on different job bulletin boards, Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, through the Jazz HR website. ENMU assist through their website and their bulletin boards, Municipal League, Chamber of Commerce, ICMA. We go to job fairs, and then of course, applications and job descriptions at the city hall are different ways that we've put out the need for vacancies within the city to hopefully meet those needs by people applying. Go ahead, Christine. This one kind of shows the timeline of applicants. So as much as we love to move the next day on applicants and get them through the door, there is a step-by-step process to be able to kind of vet the applicants to make sure that we're doing everything within our due diligence to keep up with regulations, policies, to be able to have our positions safely staffed. So the applications will come through. We'll do a job review to send it out to the department. The department then will set up their interviews to look at the applicants. They'll do their reference check to see if there's applicants within that pool that they want to proceed with. HR will be brought with the new hire paperwork to be able to proceed with those applicants. Once we have the individuals that they would like to move forward with, we're able to do the criminal background checks, motor vehicle checks to make sure that they're able to be insurable and come on staff with us. And then once that's all done, then it gets to the part to be able to give a call out to offer them a conditional offer that sometimes is contingent on a drug test depending on the position and if it's safety sensitive. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of what it takes to get an application through, an applicant through the doors. And next one, Christine. Thank you. So in summary, the city of Portales staff is the heartbeat of our community. With their hard work and dedication, that is what allows the city to succeed and thrive. With the continued help of our city council, we'll be able to continue doing that. You guys are our voice. Your decision and vote allow us to continue to help this community and make it great. And last one, Christine. Thank you.
You're welcome, but thank you. Any questions for Jenna?
Just one,
Yes, sir.
the chief's probably the one to answer, it, but the 8 on yours is more because of the new.
The
money
8
coming out,
is
correct?
the new grant
Okay.
positions, if awarded,
Okay,
that reflect
that's what I
the
thought. I just wanted to make
need
sure.
for the services we provide.
Anything else? Thank you. Good
Yep,
report.
thank you.
Next, I'd like to ask Rowdy Smith to come forward. We are recognizing Rowdy tonight. For his 5 years of service in the city of Portales, Dallas Police Department. And gonna present you with this certificate. It reads certificate of appreciation to Rowdy Smith in recognition of 5 years of your faithful service, outstanding performance, and commitment to excellence for the city of Portales. And also your 5-year pin. We'll see in a few years. I'll give you another, or somebody will. Mr. Davidson, the floor is yours.
And my name is Mike Davidson. In the interest of full disclosure, I do serve on the Public Works and the Water Advisory Committees. However, my viewpoints tonight are just that, my viewpoints, and not necessarily the views of those committees. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Chief, for hearing me out. There are 525,600 minutes in a year. Portales uses 900 million gallons of water per year and has for the past several years. For the sake of reference, I ask that we think of this as Portales uses 1,712 gallons per minute every minute of the year. We pay hydrologists tens of thousands of dollars every year to tell us how do we stretch our water supply to make it until the Ute Reservoir can help us in 2032. They term it bridging the gap, and they warned us you have to cut your use from to 700 million gallons per year. We need to cut our use from 900 million to 700 million gallons per year, or again, for perspective, from 1,712 gallons per minute to 1,331 gallons per minute, which we have never done. I need to throw in a couple of footnotes here. The Ute project is subjective. First, it might work, it might not. It might produce what was predicted, or it might not. Keep in mind, we're not guaranteed X number of gallons. We are guaranteed percentages up to so many acre feet of what is available each year. So if this project produces 50% of what they thought it was going to, we're going to get 50% of what we thought we were going to get. But you know, we'll see. We will stay optimistic on that aspect. Lastly, it might be completed in 2032 and it might not. Our wastewater treatment plant was promised to be completed in 14 months in a press release by the former Public Works Director, with all laterals run and fully operational. That was 10 years ago this month, and we're still working on it. So the point there being, completion deadlines have to be taken with a grain of salt, even more so when the government is involved. But down to the nitty gritty, the Ogallala Aquifer declines 3% per year, which causes us to lose 105 gallons per minute per year in the well field. And it has for the past 22 years. So while the aquifer is losing 3% of its groundwater, we're losing 6% of our production every year. Right now, we have a 24% buffer between our current production of 2,240 gallons a minute and our use of 1,712 gallons per minute. But when that buffer is gone, we will start cutting into critical production capacity. If our current trend continues, that will happen in 4.5 years if we do not intervene. Time for another footnote. Mr. Merrick and I will be attending an 8-hour Eastern New Mexico Water Conservation Summit in Clovis on August 2nd that will be showing new aquifer mapping results for Curry County, not including Roosevelt County, as well as another 8-hour Office of the State Engineer and Interstate Stream Commission groundwater seminar in Socorro on August 23rd. As a shameless plug for both of these events, they are free, so please consider attending. It's a good way of avoiding we didn't know. And the one in Clovis, they're providing lunch from Leal's if that's any incentive. So I know it was for me. The scuttlebutt is that the new aquifer mapping results are showing the decline remains as previously projected, which is very serious. And New Mexico will be looking for ways to clamp down upon our water supply. The seminar in Socorro with the OSE and the ISC indicates they will be talking about things they have been unwilling to talk about in the past. This is not meant to fearmonger. This is meant to awaken us and make us prepare for possibilities we may not have counted on. We must pay attention to conservation. But my point tonight is not what you might think. It is that we have become so codependent on water revenue for our city budget. Our declining well field production is also a declining revenue source. And that loss impacts subdepartments like effluent water and our general fund. Our city leaders are going to get tarred and feathered on the courthouse square if we have to raise water rates to compensate, or especially what some of the rates have been talking about. We have to diversify. Our residents will not tolerate much of a water rate increase. As a city, we have to remember we have competition. Clovis rates are neck and neck with Portales for the water part of our bill. Clovis has a current water supply projected to last far longer than Portales. They currently have no restrictions other than normal conservation. So that's why I say Portales residents are not going to tolerate very much of a water rate increase. We have to diversify to other revenue sources. And the most practical are GRT and property taxes. We have not raised gross receipts taxes, I understand, in 22 years. I would ask, who can make ends meet living on wages you had 2 decades ago? We need GRT revenue because it's paid by everyone, not just property owners. Even non-residents can contribute to our community. We totally missed the boat after the Clovis Walmart fire. But and another thing, also last year, this room filled up when the city reported to the newspaper that property taxes were going to increase by 150%. I showed up squealing as loud as anyone because my commercial property would have gone from $400 to $1,000 a year if that were true. But it was not true. It was explained incorrectly and with the wrong figures. Only the city's 12% portion would have gone up. My tax bill would have gone from $400 to $460, not to $1,000. I don't like a $60 tax increase. I do like it better than the $600 tax increase. In reality, I do not like taxes at all. And I have spoken to 0 residents that like taxes. But everyone is smart enough to know it is a necessary evil we must endure to pay for our common needs. Every resident I have spoken to is willing to accept slight, reasonable tax increases to help our community. The biggest concern and reservation is the city might waste the money or be irresponsible with it. So some considerations to address these issues would be conserve more water, slightly increase GRT and use it to repair Portales, take care of our first responders and lower paid city employees, slightly increase the city portion of property tax after explaining it correctly, micromanage city expenses, only raise water rates to water hungry users, but preferably turn our potable and affluent water over to a third-party management company. It has gotten out of our control, beyond our scope, and we literally have no margins of error left in regard to our water supply. If we do these things while we seek a trash transfer station, complete with recycling, and launch a citywide beautification effort, we will see our conditions start to improve and see people and businesses come to Portales without us having to bribe them. Joe McVeigh is an awesome grant writer. Ashley Flores and Kelly McClellan are ridiculously good at what they do, but I think it will benefit all of us to assume that we're not going to be able to grant beg our way out of this mess. So that would be it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mike.
If you listen to me.
All right, we're going to move on to our action items. Our first item comes from the Finance Department requesting approval for state auditor contract with Patillo, Brown and Hill for FY 24. Liliana.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm excited to have before you an FY 24 audit contract. Typically, those are procured in the spring, so we were a little late in the game. But after I reached out to several entities, recommended, of course, by the state, and then some of those even highly recommended. After conversations and proposals that I received, I recommend for your approval the audit contract with Patillo, Brown and Hill. Initially in your packet, it was contingent upon state audit approval, but it was approved through them as well. Patillo, Brown and Hill will be able to complete the audit within the December 15th deadline so that we would be in compliance and avoid an audit finding. And also their proposal was priced the better pricing compared to the other ones received. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Rivera? I have one. Is this structured to a multi-year?
Yes, correct. And it is in the proposal. I think it is listed
Okay.
through
I
like
didn't
the
see
next
that.
4 years.
Okay.
In the very back, yeah.
What is,
So their pricing remains the same through FY 2027.
what are the rules or what's typical in government as far as having a different auditor after so many years? Is there,
Right now, I believe it is through 6 years. The state office will change that to probably going back to 4 years. So we can, it's up to the council to choose what auditors we can use each year. And that's why we bring it before you each year.
Other question? It's a pleasure to council on this item.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Merrick, second by Mr. Elkins. Any further questions? Swoops, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
And thanks for all your efforts getting us back in. All right, now we're going to move over to community service and Ms. McClellan. Our first item is approval of recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission for amendment to resolution number PC 2024-2025-01. Amendment to change the portion of Buena Vida Park from a public park to be now used as the area for the new animal control facility denied by the Planning Commission at their July 8th meeting in 2023. Says 2024 here.
Oh.
That's why,
2023.
because we're not there yet.
Oh, perfect. So this is gonna be one of the confusing ones where by approving the P and Z's recommendation, you're denying the application. So I put it on here because I was confusing myself with this. So about 7 months ago, before we had secured the money for the for the animal control shelter, the original plan was to put the new animal control facility at La Buena Vida Park, which you guys may know as Cheese Park. Because half of it was going to be made as a dog park anyways, so they figured put the animal control next to it. Supposed to go there. I brought a picture, or not, this won't be the picture, but it'll explain a little bit better. So that was, but in the original special use permit that we brought up, the animal control wasn't brought up as a point of where they'd like to put it because we hadn't received funding yet. So the special use permit that actually went through dedicated half of it to stay a human park and the other half to be a dog park. So we got the $350,000 for the emergency money for the animal shelter. And so we need a place to put it. So there were two options. The staff and I looked at a lot of properties the city owned, and we could really only find two places that had the public roads and the utilities that we would need to just put the building down and run. This was one of it. So we brought the special use permit back up. P&Z did recommend a denial. And I actually do agree with that. I think it's the middle of town. The option 2 is the better one, but we're bringing it to you as an option for you guys to vote on. As soon as we can vote on where this location goes, I can start the design work. Until I know how far from utilities it's going to be, I really can't do much design work until I know what money is going to be spent. But this, you go to the next one. So here's a picture of La Buena Vida Park, Cheese Park. The green is already dedicated to be a dog park. And the yellow was dedicated to remain a human park. The amendment would change the yellow to be an animal control facility. So you can see it's on Ivy, between Ivy and Jupiter. We did send out letters and we didn't get any protests back. But this is still a heavier residential place than option 2. Thanks, Chris. Option 2 is on Industrial Road. And this is by the senior center, the walking trail, and the maintenance yard. So it's close to where it's already located, just on the other side of the property. It has access to utilities, the public road, and a reuse line, which I'll go over a little bit when it shows up. It's still in town, it's still within city limits, but it's not in a residential area. It's more of kind of an industrial area because we already have all that stuff out. Ms. Chris, we go to the next one. So we marked the 2 best options for the shelter to go. It has to be 20 feet off the utility lines. So your blue lines there are your water lines, your green lines are your sewer lines, and then your purple line that runs up industrial is a reuse line. This place was picked because it's one of the only places that has sewer and water available right by a public road. We wouldn't have to bring any roads in. They could just come in. One of the good things about the reuse is while it's not a promise, there's nothing that says we can't use that reuse to water our dog yard and to possibly keep clean kennels. That's also not a promise we could make because they could still turn us down when we go to the permit. So it's not a yes, not a no, but that is something we would apply for, would be able to use that reuse water for cleaning purposes. So we're not using drinking water because we clean a lot of animal kennels. So this would be good for our water. Option 1's a little bit closer to the senior center, but it's a little more reasonably distanced from the softball complex. The utility lines are a little bit more separate, but still close enough that the money we have will cover it. And of course, option 2 is much closer to softball complex. It'll be right there. But the lines are already right close together. They wouldn't be as far, and it has built-in parking. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We're just looking, if you approve this, if you'd like to amend the special use permit, we can put it at the dog park, Cheese Park. If you'd like not to, this was our other option. If you guys have any other options, we're happy to look at them. But we did go through pretty much all city-owned property, and we couldn't find any that met that it was just building ready.
Can I ask, on the opposite side of the purple line, isn't there a home right across from like 1, or is that closer down to the senior center?
There is a home. I believe it's a little bit further up. I didn't take a screenshot of that. But
Is that the entrance that you're pointing at right there, Christine?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit further, but there are a couple of houses, but I believe there's only 1 or 2 on the other side versus in Cheese Park where there's
They're everywhere.
dozens pretty close.
Yeah, that little triangle on the back side of the park there, what would keep you from placing it there? There between the warehouse, yeah. there where Chris is.
It's just gonna be, we're gonna have to pull all those utility lines up. And we only requested enough really to build the facility. So anywhere that we have to pull utilities, the city's gonna have to fund separately from the grant. And we did talk about some of these. And if it's close enough, we may have to extend the sewer line or we may have to put a septic tank in. We were thinking about putting it just a little further up in that section. The sewer, our sanitation and disposal said we'd have to put a septic tank in. They couldn't stretch the lines over.
Can you point out which one of the buildings is currently or?
Yeah. So our animal shelter is this building where the blue dot is, a little taller than I am. They used to actually be this Christmas point where they used to be. At that far end. Just right there. So they used to be pretty close to senior center. And they were in that somewhere that wasn't very insulated. So the new building will have some insulation. So hopefully they won't be as loud, but of course there's still outside pens. So there could still be some barking there.
And so green is sewer line, purple is reuse,
Yes, and then
blue is electric.
water.
Is electric on this?
Electric's not on here, but we have the electric supply to both those, so it's also an available utility.
Awesome.
Kevin, how close is it to the existing soccer field?
The
Just to the left.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
almost at the purple line, bottom left.
okay.
So that's the soccer field down there at the bottom there?
It'd be further that.
Further
that way.
that way.
Further
Okay,
left
all right,
too, though.
all right.
I went out and looked at another location this afternoon. That would be off the Roosevelt Road 6. That ties in. And sent that to Chris to put up. So. That intersection to the right there is actually Industrial Park and Roosevelt Road 6. If you go past DFA, our property coming off the water park around the reuse pond goes out to Road 6. And currently there's some old dead trees stacked up there. There's some trash that would have to be cleaned up. There's some elm trees that are growed up. And we don't have a city water line there, but co-op does. So
What about sewer?
sewer,
Uh,
not for sure.
Mr. Chris said we didn't have to have sewer, we'd have to build a septic tank. And animal control shelters aren't recommended for septic tanks because of how often the drainage and what goes down their drain. It's still a possibility, it's on a septic tank now. But we looked at that property and that was one of the reasons it was excluded was.
And also in that property, they're close to 5 to 6 houses.
It's at the end of where the runway used to
Oh,
be
the
back at
old
the old
runway,
airport.
yeah.
It's right at the end of that runway.
You know, the runway, and that's houses on the west side and the east side of that property. And they small places in there, I think, the Glacier property out there. So I think it's, anyway, I'm not gonna shut up.
Well, I'm trying to look at something that's not in town, but still accessible. For people that come to pick up animals or adopt animals.
And the process would definitely work. The city would just have to come up with the money to fund the septic tank buildings.
And so rebuilding where it's at is not an option?
No, where it's at, if they wanted to do a septic, I can't remember if it's a septic or a water line, but they have to put in a lift station. And we've also encroached on the fire station's territory, so we have to give them their building back. That's part of why we were given it as an emergency, was so they could keep their building and not risk any of their future funding.
So is planning zone recommending option 2 or 1?
Of the two options we gave them, which are the two options we could find, they recommended option 2, which would be down by the senior center. And then from the senior center, these were the two places that we found.
When it came before planning and zoning, I asked her at that meeting to come up with these locations. That was not presented at planning and zoning. The only thing that was presented at planning and zoning was whether or not we wanted it at Buena Vista, and we said no.
Okay.
And I think that's think it's a good.
Yeah, and these two options are first time being presented tonight, and I'm fine with them. I personally find number one, I think it's far enough from the senior center. I'd rather it not be even closer to softball park, but I could live with either one over the park.
So, yeah, I'm worried about 2 and 1. 2 is right at the softball.
Yeah, number one's better as far as I'm concerned, but I'm also okay. I mean, I'm having a hard time locating in my mind the one Eldon went and looked at.
You remember where the runway ended?
It's just for.
Right before the county, before Road 6,
That
the
near
north-south
Kelly
runway,
McClure?
it's right there.
Yeah, it's just, it's about a quarter mile.
I kind of like number one the best too, and basically because of the, the savings for the utilities and access and all that. So.
Mr. Mayor, may I say comment? I like to make a comment to Kelly and Joe on this. I appreciate the work you've done to get this together. And I appreciate the zoning planning commission for denying the Chiefs part. I'm in favor of this proposal. I'm only one vote, but you got my vote for number one.
I'm still confused, to be real honest, Kelly, how we're gonna vote, if that's what we wanna do. I kind of was at planning and zoning as well. So if we approve, we're agreeing with what planning and zoning said,
To deny it, yes.
which is to deny the cheese part,
Mhm.
but it still doesn't tell us anything about option 1 or 2 here.
No, so I brought them up because those are our two options. So if you deny this as being really our only other option, you could add into your thing that you would prefer this to be built here, in your motion, and we could move forward with the design work.
So we need to add that into the motion.
If
Or-
this is one of the choices I'd like to make, yes.
Is this something that should go back to planning and zoning to have you guys discuss it further?
I don't know what her time frame is. We discussed kind of on a time frame.
It isn't a,
situation.
an
It's time
emergency
sensitive,
grant.
I believe.
Well, not so much for the fire side, just with it being emergency funding, it meets more of the requirements if we proceed in
out.
an expedient
Of the
manner.
grant,
Fair
because
Yeah,
we.
That's
asked for
where we
emergency
were.
funding.
Oh,
worried.
okay.
We need to get moving.
I have a question. So on the La Villa Park deal you sent out to residents asking their comments on it. We have not done this on this. have we?
no, not on this one. It doesn't need a public hearing because we're not changing the nature of the property. The La Buena Vida needed it because it's a human park. So to change a park's nature or to change a special use permit, you need one, but not for here.
Even though it's not needed, would it not be a good idea to send it out and see if there's not someone that's gonna protest the fact that we're putting that there?
If that is what you guys would like us to do, we can.
Has there been any complaints since the dog park
We asked for
Is-
emergency funding.
has been out there, the animal?
We haven't had any complaints that have come to me, have been passed on to me. I'm not saying there hasn't been, just none that have made it to,
Except from the fire department.
except from the fire department.
Except the fire department. The Kibbles haven't made a complaint.
They've actually been taking some of our foster dogs for rescues. So they've been filling their property up.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I'm gonna try to make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the planning and zoning commission to deny River Park and to amend that. To add to that, take the recommendation, we take option 1 is presented.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second that we uphold the denial from the planning and zoning and recommend option 1 for the location of the animal control facility. Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
And that, you understand that as your second, Jake?
Yes.
Okay, now does everybody understand that motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any further questions or comments?
I will say, looking at the Onyx map, there is what appears to be a home directly across from option 1. Just a comment.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
No,
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
No.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 5-2, the motion passes. Thank you. All right. Ms. McClellan, and next item is approval of recommendation of code enforcement priorities for 2024-2025. Code enforcement committee recommends a targeted approach with specific priorities for code enforcement.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So we have a very small code enforcement department. We just have one full-time officer who's also the supervisor of animal control. And she does a lot. And then, of course, I help with a lot with code enforcement, but I also have quite a few other departments. So we were looking up on ways that smaller departments like that can be more useful. And one of the recommendations we were able to find that other towns had implemented was having the targeted approach. So what that means, it means that Kathy, we could still continue, who's our code enforcement officer, would continue to cite and tag, as she has done. I'll go over her numbers, which are actually pretty impressive. But that we'd have a priority list that council would dictate to me that they would like to see done this year or the next 2 years to look for some more permanent change. So I'll show you on the next page, we've got it. But we did get a little committee together. It was one P&Z commissioner, one P&Z/city council member, myself, our P&Z administrator, and our code enforcement officer of what we saw and how we could improve it. Some backstory is last year, the city decided we're gonna do a bunch of alley cleanups, and we spent a lot of the budget that we use for projects and alley cleanups. And it looked fantastic for 2 weeks. Like those alleys are really nice. But 3 weeks later, the alleys were dirty again, that money was gone. So we'd like to find a way to use that money where we can see more permanent change that's going to be better for the community. But I always got to brag about code enforcement because I don't brag about them enough. So here's their numbers so you can see what one person does pretty much all by herself. So for 2023 to 2024, she had 39 cars removed. These can be inoperable, wrecked, and or unregistered. She had completed 66 dumpster and alley related completions. This does involve taking people out of dumpsters, which takes a long time. She sent out 685 door tags, 996 postcards. She had 1 dangerous property remediated. That's without the city stepping in, and then 2 by the city stepping in. 16 houses were cleaned. These were not bad enough that they were dangerous properties, but still messy and an eyesore. And then she had 16 of those done. Just from June 15th to July 15th, and this is June 20th was when our animal control officer turned in their resignation. It was their last day. So being both animal control officer and in code enforcement, she's done 96 door tags and 25 postcards in a month. 15 houses have been posted, which means they didn't listen to the 96 door tags or postcards. So they get posted, and if they don't listen there, then we go forward and they have to go to property. So that's kind of where we're at. Let's just go to the next one. So here is the document. You guys have it in your packet, but I put it up so everybody else can see it too. Our recommendation was that the first priority be the removal of operable, dismantled, partially dismantled vehicles within city limits. I'll tell you why. So we have 35 properties that have about 3 or more inoperable wrecked cars on property. People keep them to sell in the future, but they're not licensed for it. The money we have about a $50,000 budget a year. One property cleanup 2018 was $96,000. So our budget does not go very far in terms of property cleanups. So, but the good thing about cars is they're usually towed away, and then the tow trucks keep them, which are on contract. So it doesn't cost the city nearly as much as what number 2 would be, which is demolishment of structurally unsound buildings. We can take all those to court, but we don't have the money to pull them all down. Each one goes from about 10 to 20,000 for the city to have pulled down. So we technically only do 2 a year. And of course, number 3 would be the remediation of weeds. Things we've mowed 2 months ago, you can't tell we've mowed them. So we felt 1 and 2 or more permanent changes that you would need. And then of course, property cleanups and alley cleanups is 4 and 5. Everything would still be looked at, but we're hoping the council will give us a target to kind of go on for the next year or 2. And then we can keep you guys apprised of how many cars or how many houses, depending on what you choose, have been met. And then of course, we did the below duties, which are just short-term. This wouldn't be affected. Ms. Kathy catches unpermitted construction projects, illegal dumping investigations, and unregistered parking. So she would still do those as they came in. As I said, this first part would be what we really put a lot of effort into. We make social programs for. We go to hearings to have judges give us court orders to remove that property. So I was looking for recommend approval of accepting this or changes so we can kind of start really hard on 2024, 2025.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Veronica.
Kelly, does this affect the properties that are already in cleanup? Are we still going to move forward with those properties?
Yes, so the properties that we have declared last year, we're waiting for this money to come in fiscally. But all those property claims are gonna be so expensive, we're gonna be very short on money for the rest of the year to continue more property cleanups. Which is why we did cars as the cheaper option to continue going out throughout the year on a smaller budget.
Thank you.
Okay, Jake?
How about the weeds? I don't believe in that code enforcement, because man, those weeds are really growing.
We do, unfortunately, we were out of money for this year, so our fiscals just restarted in July. So we have 8 properties that if they don't respond very, very quickly, they're slated to go, the city's gonna pay someone to go do it. And then it goes against the property, the owners have to pay us back.
Question for Steve. Steve, is there a way that we can clean up the property and file like a mechanics lien on the property?
Yes, we have to, depending on the property, but the city has to file a claim with the court. We file a complaint. We then have a right to clean the property, remove the property, demolish the property if it's dangerous, and file a claim for damages against the property owner. And we've done that with several of them. I don't know if we've we've sold some of them have been sold at auction, but yes, the answer is generally yes, we can.
So after they're given several chances, notices, you can go through those proceedings and actually put a lien on the property.
Yes.
To collect that money.
Yes. We've had some results. I think it was a couple of years ago, we filed 4 of them in a row around Christmas time. And I think 3 of them actually claimed the property and 1 of them didn't.
I think we've got to have some teeth somewhere in this to get people to actually act on their own without us having to do it, but I just don't know what's the best way of doing it.
And then
Well, the other thing with the liens, sometimes we're the 3rd or 4th lien.
Yeah.
Which puts us in a pretty bad position. But
it is true, we rarely make the money back we do put into the properties.
Kelly, on item 1, could you, there's a lot of people make comments that we still have vehicles look like car lots. What is the process of getting those people, because these been going forever. I mean, they sitting there and they're there and they're there, and I don't know that. I assume they in business selling used cars. Is that the item 1? How do we do to get those off?
So that is actually part of what we'd hope to accomplish with this. It is, you'd have to go to a court case to get permission to remove them from the judge. But that is, a tow truck would have to come after the court case, give us permission. They do have options. It wouldn't just be, they have no options. They could apply for a business license or a zone change to be a salvage yard or a used car lot. Or they could apply for a variance on how they keep their cars, because you're supposed to keep cars like that in an enclosed, closed space, garage or something. So they could still come to you and ask for special permissions, and if denied, we could still go to court, get a court order to go on their personal property and remove all of those vehicles.
So I'm assuming that all cars parked that's been sold at these properties, I can point one out right in my head right now. I assume they have a business license.
If they don't have a business license, then if we were being super targeted on them, then yes, that would cover in that. If they didn't have the correct licensure, we would make them remove their cars.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. If I understand correctly from our meeting, which I was the one that was a part of that meeting. If the vehicles are operable and registered, there's not anything we can do.
Yes, so our ordinance says they have to
That's
be,
part of the problem, is
Yeah.
if they keep it registered and it can operate, then we don't have anything we can do about it. This has to be inoperable. partially dismantled, et cetera, for us to jump on.
But if they're in a proper zone, we could do something about it.
Well, if they're selling, then we can talk about the business license side of it, but I'm just talking about the ones, because I ask about ones that are just sitting.
Yeah.
You know, people have 3 or 4 cars sitting there, but they're all registered and,
So the definition.
Yeah, yeah, so.
Thank you.
Does it make a difference whether they're actually on the city street or whether they're on their property?
Well, if you're on the property, then it's up to a zoning, it'd be a zoning issue. If it's dangerous, if there's animals that are using it or something that could create a danger or a hazard, then we've got a process to proceed that way.
I've got one that every morning, whenever I turn in the street to go to my work, if someone is not over in their lane, I can't hardly get by, make that turn because there's one that sits right by the corner of that street that's been there for over a year.
Does that create a blind corner?
Is that Abilene?
No, just turning on the E off of Third.
If it creates a blind corner or a hazard for vehicles traveling in the roadway, that might be a way to get rid of it, or get it moved rather.
Okay, there's no further questions. What's the pleasure of the council on the recommendation of the Code Enforcement Committee?
I move that we accept it.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, second by Mr. Elkins. Any further discussion? Swoops, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Our next item is from the Projects Administration Fire Department. The item is to purchase and equip an ambulance through capital outlay appropriation with the New Mexico Finance Department. Joe.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. So the city applied for capital outlay for an ambulance, and we were granted that. So we are asking for the city council to approve and sign the project agreement between DFA and the city. DFA is the Department of Finance Association. Administration, I'm so sorry, you're right. There's no matching funds for this project, and of course, 200,000 is not going to actually purchase the full ambulance. So we're hoping that this will work. Well, we know it will work in conjunction with if we get the Department of Health EMS Bureau vehicle purchase grant for full funding.
And we have 3 years to spend this 200,000. Is that not correct?
Yes, the reversion date for this project is June 30th, 2026.
So we do have time to continue to get the funding to.
Well, and we were awarded 205,000 through the vehicle purchase grant for this. So those two in conjunction will purchase a not fully equipped, but nearly fully equipped ambulance with a stretcher and maybe a cardiac monitor as well.
Pretty good.
Yes, sir.
And I might point out this $200,000 came from the governor's capital. Yes. For the record. Any other questions?
Can I ask if we were to get a fully equipped ambulance, what does that run?
With all the Band-Aids, medications and everything, you're probably looking in the neighborhood of 750,000 to $1 million, depending on the stretcher and cardiac monitor.
So we're still well short of that.
Well, the good news is we have a lot of the soft goods in stock that will be able to go in place. And the hope is to get 5 fully equipped ambulances with 1 in reserve. That would allow us to have 1 in reserve when 1 goes down for maintenance, that we can just move everything over. We did receive extra funding also for 2 cardiac monitors and 2 chest compression devices, as well as increased EMS funding this year that will all help in equipping this ambulance plus the future projects.
Further questions?
I got a question. How old are these vehicles we have now?
The ambulances, the newest one is 9 years old, almost 10 years old.
How many miles?
Average mileage of over 100,000 between all four that we have right now.
I rode one of them. I'll tell you what, you need one.
Realistically, sir, we need about 4.
Any other questions? It's a pleasure to council.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rattler, second by Mr. Self. One more last roll call.
Yes. Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Definitely, yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. That's the end of our action items. Our next item is city council and staff comments. I'll begin with staff. I'll go to the back. Okay. Anybody on the? I'm not to you yet. Hold on. Okay, now.
Thank you, sir. So there is one department within our city that gets very little accolade that went extremely above and beyond for our city staff this last week. We had not a little issue, but a big issue with payroll, and our finance department spent a lot of long hours and a lot of great dedicated work to ensure that our staff didn't even see the issue. So I would really like to applaud and thank Liliana, Monica, Antoinette for their extreme hard work over this last week to ensure payroll got done. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Mr. Elkins, I'll start with you.
I just want to piggyback a little bit off of Mr. Davidson. Him and I sit on the Public Works together. And I do want to cover some of the figures that he was referring to about the hefty increases that were proposed to us, not through the Public Works, but through the presentation from the rate study that we got. And it was a number in the amount of 50% for the first 3 years, 20% for the next 2 years, and 5% following. So starting in year 1, if you're at $100 by the end of year 6, you're at $486. That is not feasible. We all saw it on the Public Works, and that was based on numbers that we were given by the engineering study. So even more reason why we want to look at the experts for water. And again, I cannot thank EPCOR enough for being willing to step up and help us with our water situation. So thank you. I want to thank you, Mike, for doing your work on that. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Lopez.
Our argument is about not water, but weeds and trash all over the city, and the alleys, they need to get fixed, but I know what's happening there. We don't have equipment to do it.
I want to respond to Ms. Murray, your comment about the state having excess funds. I know Stuart talked last month about us being one of the wealthiest states in the union, and I just don't want to be dependent on government, and whether it's political or whatever affiliation which side you're on, Democrat, Republican, depending who's in office, we may not get some funds just because we may not be well liked on this side of the state. So I'm definitely want to pursue a private entity as far as our water, and I just think there's more upside. There's win-win scenarios with, if there's a farmer that is tired of farming and we can get them online into our water system. Most of the water usage is by farmers. So if we can get them offline and into our system, just like EPCOR and their model has done for years, that puts less risk on us, and we can't, it's not feasible to spend 266 million in 3 phases on state land. I don't want the state to dictate any more rules than they already have. So I really want us to pursue EPCOR. I hope we can get the information. As far as the staff, you know, working hard on many avenues, but if we can just send some information, not looking for perfection, so we can keep it rolling.
So we had an issue with the information transfer. They couldn't access the Dropbox that it was placed in. So Chris Mendoza met up with them with a jump drive, I believe yesterday, to provide the majority of the initial. I'm sure you saw the email that I sent out. And then the rest of it will be either, if it hasn't already been provided, be provided by tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you. I'm sure Mary will touch on the GRT and property taxes. Mike, thanks for bringing that up. We had a discussion recently about that, a few of us, and we'd planned on doing a workshop, and that's probably in the near future needs to be done with Ms. Rivera. Thanks for your help on the finance, and hopefully we can, you know, figure out where we're at and where we need to go from here. But obviously that's a concern, and it needs to move the needle and raise funds so we can do things that needs to be addressed. So totally agree. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank the Public Works Department staff for what they're doing for the city, with the effort they put into their work. Those young men and ladies constantly working, and this city requires them to do a lot of amendment. And because we have a lot of old infrastructure, we have pipes that burn every day. And these young men and women are out there and they understand the problems, but they don't, I don't think they complain, but they just continue to do the work, and I would pass that on to them, each one of them individually, and I try to tell them that myself. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Merrick, Mr. Racker, you asked to go last, right?
Well, I really don't have anything other than what's already been covered to the.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Merrick.
Okay. I just want to mention that Diane put out to the council to get together and have a employee appreciation lunch, and we did that, and I want to thank all those that showed up for that and either ate or contributed to cooking and serving. And I don't know if we ever had a final number of how many went through, but I'm gonna guess somewhere around 60 or so. But could have been more, but I think it was a good time and a good effort by Diane and others to put this appreciation lunch out, and hopefully it did some goodwill with employees. And then my other thing is, we were put on a committee to meet with the co-op 2 or 3 meetings ago. We've had one meeting with our lawyer since then. I've sent out a few emails. We've had emails between some of the committee members, but we have yet to actually have a productive meeting where we could focus on what needed to be presented back to the co-op. And their contract was presented to us in March. And I think it's inexcusable that we have not acted on this time. And so I want to see some answers to emails and some action to set up a meeting and get this thing behind us. We drug this thing out for years now, and we've got to get it taken care of and behind us. I don't know how much more I can stress that. I've put out emails and I don't get responses, so it's frustrating.
Ms. Cordova.
I also would like to thank the council for the collaboration on the appreciation dinner or luncheon rather. And I just wanted to say thank you one more time to every employee that took time out of their day to come and spend lunch with us. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing day in and day out. So for that, we thank you. And then I would just like to thank our community for the participation in the cabinet and the community town hall. And for the most part, we were everything was respectful, and we appreciate the governor and her cabinet for coming to Portales and seeing what our needs are. So thank you to the community for your participation in that as well. And then one more thank you is to the grillers on the lunch appreciation day. It was like 104 degrees out there, and they were out there sweating it up, and they allowed Diana and I to be inside being the hostess. So thank you for your chivalry and your and your sweatiness out on the grill.
I don't know about the rest of them, but I smell like greasy burgers for 2 days.
Yeah. My dog didn't leave me alone today.
That one on the grill was really working hard.
Anything else, Veronica?
That is it.
Okay. I have a few comments. I was going to comment with Mr. Wall's comments a little bit, but I noticed that they'd left. Ms. Murray, I will tell you, and I think Mr. Self made some of that comment. We do have people that are striving to write grants. Joe does a good job for us. We're continuing to look at all opportunities. And there were some comments made at the town hall. Sometimes we don't get these grants because we're not able to match what's required. A lot of the federal money that came down in some of those things that came about in the last couple of years, they require a tremendous, 25 to sometimes a 50% match. And that's a little difficult for communities our size sometimes to do. It doesn't mean that we don't ask for the grant and maybe ask to waive the matching funds, but sometimes when we ask to waive the matching funds, that goes against our scoring to get the grant. I know the New Mexico Municipal League approached the legislature in the last couple of years to set aside several $1 million, like was done in Colorado and in Wyoming, that small communities like ours, or maybe even smaller than ours, could draw up on some of those funds to help with the matching funds that's required by some of these more federal grants. So we are working on those. We will, we look at every opportunity that we have. We work with our local legislators. I know that I've heard a few politicians go to state swimming in money, which then leads to things that maybe not all reasonable, the way the system works with them, the way they dealt out that capital outlay. But I can assure you we're in there fighting for it each and every legislative session. I stressed it at the last meeting. I'll stress it again. I totally agree with you about the swimming pool. I grew up in that swimming pool. I want that swimming pool open next summer. And we need to know what we need sooner than later so that we can begin to work on gathering the funds to put that together and have that thing open this time next year. Well, actually Memorial Day next year. So I can't agree with you more on that. So with that, I appreciate Veronica bringing up about the town hall meeting. Sometimes I felt like we were on the Oprah Winfrey show or the Ellen DeGeneres show because the governor committed a lot of things that she's gonna help us with, and I do appreciate that. I actually sent her a text the next day asking for a meeting sooner than later to discuss those issues that were brought up. Some of those issues were maybe not understood by her with regard to some of the commitments that she might have made. For example, I think she thought we had those take to the curb trash cans rather than the 4-yard dumpsters. I did get a call late Friday night from her chief of staff, and they are actually working on that particular issue as we speak. I will see her tomorrow. I don't know how much time I'll get to visit with her about some of these issues, but we're gonna do our best to follow through and help her follow through with what she committed last Tuesday night. So that's all I have. So we have a small executive session, should hopefully not take us very long. And we have a little action, hopefully have a little action after that. So with that, I need a motion to convene into close meeting to discuss matters as provided for under New Mexico statutes in reference to threatened or pending litigation with Great American Financial Services.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Merrick, a second by Mr. Elkins. Swopes, we please call the roll.
Ms. Cordova?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
I need a motion to convene into regular session out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Merrick, second by Mr. Self. Okay. And I need a roll call.
Okay. Ms. Cordova
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, we met in executive session to discuss the items that were mentioned in the motion to go into executive session. And there is action required as a result.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we accept the settlement agreement that was pending litigation with the Great American Financial Services.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Merrick, second by Mr. Robinson. Everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
That motion is approved. That concludes our agenda for the evening, and we are adjourned.